the period of unease, the beginning of the loyal families. As Second Earth advanced in its hidden purpose, the Custodians discovered something they had not anticipated. The imperfect copy was beginning to behave like an uncomfortable reflection of the original. Cracks in the programming multiplied, dreams and visions became more frequent, and mental interference, though still primitive at the time, was no longer sufficient to suppress the impulses of lucidity that were beginning to flourish among certain groups, which were growing considerably. The texts preserved in shaky speak of the period of unease, a span of approximately 20 years measured against our own lands, during which the clones developed patterns that did not fit the expected models. These were not open rebellions, nor violent conflicts. It was something far more subtle and far more disturbing to the Custodians. A spontaneous search for the meaning of life itself. Small circles of clones began to gather outside the imposed schedules. They constructed symbols no one had taught them, symbols reminiscent of those found in Tartarian temples prior to the reset. Others began walking toward forbidden regions, drawn by intuitions they could not explain. Some even claimed to hear words from an inner voice, a resonance the Custodians immediately identified as the weakened voice of the neshama, though it made no sense to them. That voice, however faint, was the greatest threat to the project. The clones had not been designed to remember the divine origin of the original being. They were not meant to experience the intuition that something in their lives was false, incomplete, or constructed. Yet the ancestral memory of the source, though lacking direct connection, persisted, brushing against the walls of their minds like a breeze that could not be sealed. Something had begun that threatened to bring down an entire imposed system, something utterly unthinkable to the colonizers. The Custodians responded once again with increasing severity. They intensified the mental noise. Then they introduced new narratives to divide the population. Finally, individuals who had shown signs of lucidity began to disappear entirely. Wars were no longer effective. However, every attempt at control seemed to generate the opposite effect. The modified clones began to notice that people were missing. In certain sectors, a dangerous suspicion arose. If our memories can be altered, what else might be false? The ancestrals describe this moment as the first collective awakening within an artificial world, something that, according to the original masters, was inevitable, though no one could fully comprehend it. Even a human replica, if it contained the smallest fragment of the original spark, would sooner or later seek the truth. It was then that a clandestine group, recorded on the tablets under the name Those Who Awakened in Lumen, began exploring the limits of the dome enclosing Second Earth. They did not know what they were looking for, they only knew that something lay beyond. The accounts say they managed to glimpse brief luminous fractures in the sky, small fissures in the projection, similar to those described today by sailors who reached the edge of the first dome. The Custodians realized the experiment was failing. What had been designed to anticipate human behavior had become a mirror revealing their own failure, a future nightmare for them. If clones could awaken, then real humanity could do so as well, in a manner that could be sudden and devastating. Final measures were taken in secrecy. Some regions of Second Earth were permanently sealed, others were emptied. Part of the cloned population was transferred for new experiments in unknown regions, and, as mentioned earlier, several groups were even relocated to the known continents, something that had been strictly forbidden by the royal custodians at the beginning of the experiment. A small number, likely those deemed the most stable according to the records, were preserved to study how they had resisted the initial programming. But the story of Second Earth does not end there, for the very documents that narrate its decline also reveal a chilling fact. Second Earth was used as the direct model for creating the system in which post-1728 humanity would develop. The custodians had discovered that even without a complete neshama, the human being continued to seek meaning. Thus, they introduced deeper and more sophisticated levels of mental interference into the new humanity. Constant noise, internal distractions, overlapping thoughts, disordered emotions. Everything was designed to prevent the ancestral impulse from igniting once again. And of course, a more elaborate version of the false skies, accompanied by a strong narrative sustained by the loyal families. These families, among other missions, had the primary objective of fostering every form of division within society. Second Earth was officially sealed shortly before the reset. The final tablets of Shiki recount that it was left in an ambiguous state, partially inhabited, partially abandoned, yet still functioning under its independent dome, like a shadow of the world we inhabit. The ancestrals suspect that some clones survived the closure and, in complete isolation, began reconstructing their own histories without any supervision. What is most unsettling is that, according to certain fragmented notes, this final group of clones had grasped the most dangerous truth of all. If we are a copy, then an original must exist. And that phrase, simple yet profound, the same one that ignited awakenings across entire humanities before the custodians attempted to silence it forever, would also lead the clones to seek us, the originals, in order to understand more about their tragic history. One final question continues to linger. Why did the custodians not annihilate all the clones of those distant lands?